Welcome to The Explainer, where we dig into big ideas by going straight to the source material. Today, we're going to unpack a really fundamental concept in economics, how value is actually created when we make things. So let's kick things off with a puzzle, one that's right at the heart of economics. When a company starts with a certain amount of money and ends up with more, where did that extra value, that profit, truly come from? I mean, it seems simple enough, doesn't it? You buy $100 worth of stuff, you do some work, and you sell the result for 150. But here's the twist. According to our source text, that extra $50 didn't magically appear from the materials or the machines. The answer reveals something fundamental that's happening every single day in every workshop and factory. To solve this little puzzle, we have to go inside the factory. We need to look at the production process itself, because it's in the very act of making something that this amazing transformation of value actually happens. And the answer, according to the source material, is all about labor. Specifically, that when a person is working, they are actually doing two very different things at the exact same time. And this dual role is the key to everything. All right, let's really dive into this idea of labor's twofold nature. The source text basically says if you can get your head around this one concept, the entire puzzle just clicks into place. Okay, this slide gets right to the heart of it. On one side, you have concrete labor. That's the specific skill, a person spinning cotton into thread or forging metal. This specific, useful activity transfers the value that already exists in the materials over to the new product. But, and this is the kicker, at the very same time, that person is performing abstract labor. That's just the general act of working, the pure expenditure of human energy over time. And it's that effort that actually creates brand new value out of nothing. So with that idea of labor's two sides in our back pocket, let's first look at the part of the job that preserves value. This has to do with all the things that labor works with, what our source calls the means of production. So what are the means of production? It's basically all the stuff you need to make something, minus the person actually doing the work. We're talking about the cotton, the coal that powers the machine, and of course, the machine itself, the whole physical setup. Now, each of these things contributes its value to the final product, but they do it in different ways. The cotton, for example, is totally consumed, so its value just jumps right into the yarn. The coal gets burned up, it vanishes, but its value reappears in the finished product. And then there's the big one, the machine. It passes on its value way more slowly, a little bit at a time. Let's make this super simple. Imagine you have a spinning machine that costs $1,000, and let's say it has a lifespan of about 1,000 days. Well, it's not going to dump all $1,000 of its value into the very first batch of yarn it makes, right? Of course not. Instead, it just transfers $1 of its value each day. Today, we have a common name for this, of course, depreciation. And this leads us to a really crucial point from the source text. Basically, what it's saying is this. These things, the materials, the machines, they can't just magically create value out of thin air. A $1,000 machine can only ever pass on $1,000 of value over its entire lifetime, not one penny more. And that is exactly why it gets this name, constant capital. Its value is constant because during the production process, it doesn't grow or expand. It's simply preserved and passed on from the tools and materials to the final product. Okay, so that's one half of the investment. But if the machines and the materials can't create that extra profit we're looking for, then something else has to, right? And this, my friends, is where the story gets really dynamic. This is the other half of the investment, what the source calls variable capital. And this isn't about buying physical stuff. It's about paying for a person's ability to work for a certain amount of time, their labor power. And you're about to see this part of the investment plays by a completely different set of rules. This right here, this is the core of the entire argument. A machine just transfers its own value. That's its job. But a worker's labor, that abstract expenditure of energy we talked about earlier, is the only thing in the whole process that can actually generate brand new value, more value than it costs. So, how does that work? This chart shows it perfectly. Think of the working day. For the first part of the day, a worker creates enough value to cover their own wages. That's what the chart calls value reproduced. But they don't just pack up and go home then, do they? Nope, they keep working. And for the rest of the day, they are creating additional value, what the source calls surplus value. And that is the source of profit. So you can see why it's called variable capital. Unlike the fixed, constant value of a machine, the output of labor power is, well, it's variable. It creates enough value to cover its own cost, the wage, and then it expands, creating a surplus on top of that. It's totally dynamic. Okay, we now have the two pieces of our puzzle, constant capital and variable capital. So let's put them together and finally solve that $50 question we started with. And there you have it. The mystery of the extra $50 is solved. That profit didn't just appear. It didn't come from the cotton and it didn't come from the spinning machine. According to this analysis, it came from one place and one place only, the surplus value created by the worker during that part of the day after they'd already earned their wage. This table just lays it all out, plain and simple. You've got two parts to the capital invested. The materials and machines, that's the constant part. Their role is to have their value preserved. And then you have labor power. That's the variable part. And its role is to have value created. Two totally different jobs. This quote from the source really just nails it. It talks about this incredible dual power that living labor has. Its skillful, concrete form preserves the old value from the cotton. But at the exact same time, its abstract form, as just pure human effort, adds entirely new value. This two-for-one deal is described as the engine of the entire system. So this leaves us with a pretty massive question to chew on, doesn't it? If the source of all new value, all profit, is ultimately drawn from this surplus created by human labor, how does that change the way we look at everything, from debates about fair wages to the big push for automation? What's the real value of the things that surround us every day? That's definitely something to think about.